Let's talk about the Oak Island treasure. Is it real or is it a hoax? And regardless, what can we learn about it in the world of treasure hunting? Up to this point, I've created over 200 videos on different topics related to the treasure hunting community, whether it's dealing with cognitive biases and logical thinking that's relevant to treasure hunting, reviewing different treasure hunts out there, following the John Collins Black treasure hunt pretty closely, even offering a few potential solves for some of the clues along the way. And this is one of my great joys and hobbies, is to explore this growing treasure hunt community. And it is growing quickly. And I believe that one of the movements that's captured the intrigue of this current generation is the Oak Island treasure. After all, this is the first treasure hunt that is essentially fully funded by media. The fact that it has a long-standing History Channel show, and the money coming from that show is far more, I expect, than would ever come out of the ground at Oak Island. It would have to be a pretty massive treasure at this point. And the amount of money that's put into looking for the treasure, there still has been nothing with a value that's greater than what it cost to find it. So is it a hoax or is it real? And so in this video, for those of you who have watched the show on the History Channel, and maybe you picked up somewhere later along the way, then this will give you a little recap. For those of you who are new to it, this might allow you to just get a little bit of background so you could actually check out the show for yourself if you want. I will admit, though, that I don't watch the show anymore. I just lost interest after the first handful of seasons. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let me give you some of the background. I've jotted some notes down here so I can walk you through what this is all about. So it starts with this 140-acre island off the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada. And since 1795, people have been pouring all sorts of money and time into it. And there have even been 6 deaths in search of this treasure. The question that's followed for 230 years is this: is there actually anything there? Or is it really just the most expensive shared delusion in treasure hunting history? If we go back to 1795, this is the discovery era. In the summer of 1795, there was a teenager, Daniel McGinnis, who notices a circular depression in the ground beneath a large oak tree. And above it, there's an old pulley system that's still hanging from the tree. So it suggests that someone has been lowering something really heavy down into this hole. He comes back with 2 friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughn, and they start digging. And not just a little bit of digging, a lot of digging. Every 10 feet down, they find this oak log platform, and it's every 10 feet going to at least 90 feet. And at 90 feet, they allegedly find a flat stone inscribed with a code. And when it's translated, the code allegedly says, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. And when they remove the stone, the pit floods with seawater, and many suspect that this was some kind of booby trap to protect the treasure. It's apparently connected to some kind of tunnel to the shoreline. So they can't pump it out, and they stop. Their search is over. Nova Scotia was a known pirate territory. Captain Kidd's buried treasure was a popular legend at the time. And the boys assumed that there was some kind of pirate stash down there. And that assumption spread, and it became part of the local folklore. It became part of the stories that even spread beyond the community. And it started being even referred to by some as the money pit. A little bit of a double meaning in the idea of the money pit, because it's this idea that maybe there's a lot of money down there, but also the amount of money that people are pouring into that pit to try to find something that they haven't found up to this day. So 230 years of failure. Every expedition since has hit the same problem. They get down there, the flood tunnels connected to the sea end up ending pretty much every search. 6 people have died in accidents, as I mentioned, and a variety of accidents, gas leaks and different structural collapses, things like that. And that's since the 1860s, I believe. The deaths also created a new legend, because there have been 6 deaths so far. So, one of the legends that's emerged is seven must die before the treasure is found. There is absolutely no evidence of any manuscript, any written clue, anything of that sort that suggests that seven must die before the treasure is found. This is just folklore. These are the kinds of stories that emerge around long-standing treasure hunts. It's like the game of telephone, and people begin to embellish. And certainly that adds some measure of intrigue and excitement and fear to the story and the hunt if you think that there's some kind of supernatural component to it where seven lives must be sacrificed before the treasure reveals itself. Makes great for a fantasy novel or science fiction, but it's not quite how the real world tends to work. What else do we have here then? Well, this is actually something that's captured the interest of a number of well-known people. Errol Flynn, John Wayne, FDR, they were all obsessed with this treasure hunt. FDR allegedly visited as a young man, and he followed it for a number of years afterward. And there have been millions of dollars spent in search. And to the best of my knowledge, nothing has really been recovered, no treasure. So is it a hoax or not? The hoax argument would be that nothing has ever actually been pulled out of the ground worth more than what it cost to try to find it. A second is that inscribed stone that I mentioned, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds. It's disappeared. Nobody can verify that it actually existed. There's no present day record of that. It's all just passed down word of mouth from person to person. And why would that be? Wouldn't you think you'd want to protect something like that, a key clue? The original accounts were passed down orally and with some dramatic effect, and they have evolved into folklore before anything ever gets written down. We don't really have a written record that takes us back to the earliest days of this hunt. We have stories that have been told and eventually get written down. Also, the flooding. There is a geologist who claims that this flooding could be natural, that it wasn't some kind of booby trap. I don't know. That actually isn't a particularly convincing one to me, because I would imagine that many people who have hidden real treasures have made use of actual geological and topographical features in order to protect their treasures. So I don't know if that one's particularly convincing to me, but it's one that's out there. The oak log platforms, some argue that they could be debris that fell in over centuries and they're not a deliberate construction. That one, too, isn't particularly convincing to me. If the original story is false, then I suppose so. But if there are clear increments, it's every 10 feet, there's a new platform, I'm not thinking that's just going to naturally emerge that way if it's every 10 feet. But were they really measuring it? Was it actually every 10 feet or not? I don't know if we have any evidence of that. A strong case can be made that one compelling inscription drove 230 years of a search, and that inscription may have never existed. We don't know. So here's a case against the hoax, and even what some of the discoveries have confirmed. So there is Rick and Marty Lagina, who began a systematic funded search going back to 2006. Now, the History Channel show started in 2014, so their search preceded the show by about 8 years, and the show is now in season 13 at the time of recording this. The show funds all sorts of technology that was never previously used on the island. I don't even know what most of these things are, but I wrote them down. Carbon dating, dendrochronology, X-ray fluorescence, CT scanning, lead isotope analysis, laser ablation, muon tomography, seismic surveying, all sorts of fancy technologies that make for a great show. There's been a lot there, and if there is something to be found, they have thrown more at this particular treasure hunt than probably any in the history of the world, I would imagine, by this time. There are a lot of expensive treasure hunts that have gone on throughout the history of the world, and even in the last century, of these teams that have looked for sunken treasure in particular, and the amount of money to recover a sunken treasure, the teams that were funded and the like. But I'm guessing that this particular treasure hunt having the funding from the show and using all this different technology, I'm guessing that this may be one of the most expensive treasure hunts in modern history. I could be wrong on that. I mean, especially given that going through season 13 of the show, it's not cheap to run an entire documentary like this of the quality that it is. A lot of money poured into this. And what they found really can't just be simply explained away. They did find some things. So there are these coconut fibers from Smith's Cove that are carbon dated to somewhere between 1260 and 1400 AD. And coconut palms don't grow within 1500 kilometers of this location. So somehow those coconut fibers got there. And the question is how? The wood beneath the stone pavement in the swamp, they did some searching in a swamp area on the island too, was carbon dated to the 1200s. So does that suggest there's a treasure or just that there was wood that was brought there from the 1200s or at that time? I mean, there's no one questioning the fact that there were people that had come to the island throughout history and at different times. Also, a leather shoe fragment from a cobblestone pathway that's carbon dated to 1148 to 1216. Honestly, I put this down as evidence, but I don't know what a leather shoe has to do with a treasure. Just because there was a leather shoe there in the 1200s through early 1400s, what evidence does that create that there's actually some kind of treasure? It just suggests that there was someone with a shoe there in that time period. This one is interesting too. A lead cross found at Smith's Cove in 2017, and it's traced to a specific mine in southern France that stopped production around 1300. Now, just because the mine stopped production in 1300, it doesn't mean that the raw material just disappeared. There are many instances of artifacts that were created with material from a long time ago. For example, you could find a piece of wood that is hundreds of years old, and then you could carve something out of it today, and it doesn't make the carving that old. It's just the material is that old. So I'm not sure if there's any evidence that the cross itself goes all the way back to the 1300s. It's just that the material of the cross goes back to a mine that stopped production around 1300. And yet it does suggest that there is some kind of lead cross there that came from another place, and it absolutely indicates that people from around the world or other parts of the world had traveled to this location. But once more, I'm not sure that tells the story of a treasure. Also, a Portuguese coin authenticated as struck no later than 1371, a Spanish coin from around 1652 from the swamp, English coins dated from the 1600s, a wood from the money pit at 102 feet was carbon dated to 1655 to 1695. There was a U-shaped timber structure, and it goes on and on with these kinds of things. So there were things that have been discovered, but honestly, as someone who had interest early on, I'm an ethnographic researcher by training. I'm not a trained archaeologist or anthropologist, but I've been trained in some of the same research methodologies, and I've used them for very different purposes, more in studying modern cultures and communities. I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but I will say that the things that have been found there are not surprising. You would expect, if this is a location where people from the 1200s up to the modern day have traveled and they'd stopped there from different parts of the world, you would expect to find a coin here and there, or a piece of a shoe, or perhaps a cross, or something of that sort. That doesn't provide any evidence that there's a hidden treasure. And what's so interesting to me about this whole thing is that when you look at it and you really just step back and you write it down, imagine you take all the stories out. So get all of the myths and all the stories out, and you just create a spreadsheet and you write down every piece of evidence, what's been found when, what's been said when, and then you create a level of confidence about each one based upon what can be verified today or not verified today. And you start to look at it and you strip it from its story, from its legend. I've done this, and I did it with some of the things that I put in my notes. It's not a particularly compelling story. There's not a lot of strong evidence that anything's been found. Now, there was one piece that I think I forgot to mention, which was that they did some kind of analysis of the soil by the money pit, and they did find evidence of some gold and some silver and something of that sort. So I do think that there's enough evidence to suggest that maybe something had been hidden down there. Maybe there was some kind of treasure or there was a little bit of gold or whatever, but I don't see any evidence that it's the in the millions of pounds of treasure because I don't see any evidence that that inscription is real. It's a story, and I could be proven wrong on this, and that's actually the nature of these kinds of treasure hunts. But I'll tell you this, when you think about treasure hunt design, the idea of a treasure hunt is it's designed always for a specific audience. Every treasure is hidden or designed for a specific audience. The modern day treasure hunt, like a John Collins Black treasure, that one is hidden as a game for others to search and find. It was intentionally designed by the person who owned the treasure at first, that he wanted other people to discover one or more of these 5 boxes. That's true with the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. That's true with a number of the modern treasure hunts. That's how they were designed. But then there are other treasures that were not designed as treasure hunts. They were designed to hide treasure. And these were people who hid a treasure with the hope that they or their relatives or their friends would come back and they would get it at an opportune time in the future. There's no evidence going beyond the last 100 years or so that there were people intentionally hiding treasure for random individuals to stumble upon and turn it into this great search and game in order to find it. And then there's this third kind of hunt of a treasure that was lost, like a ship that sinks and you can't get it. And so it's just there and you have to wait for someone with the knowledge and the resources to be able to come back and try to recover it, try to salvage it. And when I look at this one, this particular treasure hunt, it seems to me that if there is a treasure here, it is the second kind. It's someone who had the treasure and they hid it for a time with the intent or the hope of coming back for it. And if you were doing that, would you really hide something that far down and then put a little inscription saying that if you go down more feet, you will find this many millions of gold? Because you already know how much treasure is there. You put it there. And if you're passing on this message to a friend or family, you're going to tell them how much is there perhaps so that they're ready to pick it up. There's really no reason for that inscription except for a great story. So I'll leave you with that consideration. I hope you find this useful. I look forward to your comments.